Anyway, Stefan, it's great to have you here. Thanks for coming
Thank you.
down.
It's fun to be here.
I saw your camera yesterday, and although we don't have it with us today, I wonder if you could describe it because I was, you probably found it wet later on. I was drooling all over it.
It's a Sony EX3, which is very similar to the camera you have, the next generation up. And yeah, after a year of research and talking with people in the field, it seemed like a camera that could give me an artistic advantage. I could produce really fine images as well as be in the broadcast market, so I can get hired for larger jobs and have footage that's going to work in big productions.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that. So you like Sony. Now, Canon makes a really good camera. I mean, no question about it.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I mean, for still cameras, Canon has a wonderful image. It's like
Right.
it's like artistic. It's got lights and shadows that you can't seem to duplicate. It's
Right.
amazing.
It's got those. Well, I think you're talking about like the 5D, right?
Yes, I am.
So they've got those high-end still sensors that they're able to translate into making video, which is gorgeous, and a lot of people are using it.
Gorgeous is the word.
Yeah, and it's got a couple, for my uses, it's got a couple disadvantages. One is that you're carrying an SLR type camera, which I'm going into point and shoot. Now you can buy all kinds of rigging and kind of make a false metal skeleton around it, but the EX3 I like because I can hold it, I can run with it, I can use it differently, and really in a point and shoot documentary style shooting, which I like to do, it really allows me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other,
I agree with you absolutely about that.
Yeah, which, and I've tried to shoot, I have an SLR that shoots video, and it's not as manageable from a video standpoint, but I love shooting stills on that kind of stuff.
Do you shoot stills for B-roll? I've been getting into that. You carry a little B-roll camera with me.
Yeah.
Take a lot of stills, or ask somebody to take stills, and then I pop that in. So it's as if I have two cameras.
Yeah, very advantageous. And the stills sometimes actually are more dramatic. When you edit those in, and you have a nice that Ken Burns effect where it's kind of just coming in slowly on you, and then it adds a lot. And it can do. The other thing about a still is if you don't shoot the still perfect, you still have a lot of image to work with, and you can get it to where you need it to be to really, put.
And moving it around like the Ken Burns thing. So many variations on that theme.
Yeah.
That you can make it almost as interesting as video itself.
Yeah, sometimes more interesting.
Sometimes more interesting.
I did sometimes I do, I live in the Bronx, and I do things for the small businesses in my neighborhood, and one was a pastry shop. And so I was shooting, kind of a little promo video for them, but the video was really hard to do to make their product look good. But with a still image, I could take a beautiful picture of a pastry and move it across the screen. I know this is not a great example, but in that circumstance, the still actually outperformed the video for the need. But the other thing I was going to say is
I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Oh, good, good.
This is I've been waiting to have a conversation like this.
The other thing about the 5D that's very limiting, and I think you can do like a firmware hack on it, but it really only lets you shoot short clips. So for like this use, you couldn't do it and even if you got the firmware cracked so that you could shoot the longer clip, you'd overheat the camera. So it's really not. Now Canon's starting to realize that. Well, they got this new market, so they're designing video cameras to leverage the technology from the 5D, but like really expand it out to do what all the videographers want to do.
It's kind of a convergence, but I think what's missing is the sound. There's one thing about videos; it really doesn't mean much especially the kind of video we do, without sound. If you don't have good sound, and that means good sound.
Yeah.
You're SOL.
Yeah, and that's, when you get into this technology stuff, there's always comes a point where you have to draw a line in the sand and say, I need to focus on one thing. I can be a jack of all trades and good at nothing, or I can be the guy that really knows this. So now with that camera I'm set up, I'm a one-man studio. I know how to edit, I can record good image, and I've got some good microphones to do sound, but it's still like if I really wanted to do a good production and make it really sing, it's worth my while to bring another person on the team who can just do sound and focus on that.
Let's go back to the camera.
Yeah.
Well,
see where your heart lies.
Yeah. Well, it starts there. I don't think people realize that if you have a lousy piece, like a bicycle, you got to start with a good frame. If you have bad frame, the whole thing's a waste of time.
Right.
So this was X3, is it?
Yeah.
Huh. Tell us
EX3.
EX3. What does it do?
What does it do? I'm not like a salesperson for Sony, so I can't like rattle off all the main things, but
for you.
Yeah, it shoots in a variety of formats, which is nice. Which means I can shoot in the full highest resolution, I forget what it's 1080p at 60i, or I can smash that down and shoot it at 720p. And then I can do all the PAL formats. I can do 24p, which if you don't know what all that stuff means, those are variable frame rates and frame sizes that can be a very large, rich image, or you're kind of smalling it down. But when I shrink it down, then I can do more stuff to it. Like I can speed it up and slow it down, and so it does all that very nicely.
So what do you take? What's the native that you take?
I'm deciding now that I'm going to be shooting in the 720p at 24 frames per second for a while, because I want to be able to, I want to have that cinematic look, and I want to be able to slow it down really nicely and speed it up really nicely, so I can do fast motion and slow motion.
In the editor, that's all in the editor.
Yeah. And because I'm an editing person, I want to have that flexibility to like really play with how the footage looks.
We need more time.
Yeah.
I need to really learn from you. So the 24p, I remember, I have 24p too in these, my Sonys, but the 24p, it creates a problem, right? It's not as simple as what is the other one, 29.97.
Right.
That's the more common kind.
Yes.
The 24p, what are the issues about 24p?
Well, it's less images per second that you're creating to make your kind of stream of images, which is what the eye is dealing with. And so as a result, if you don't know what you're doing, you can create a really kind of jittery motion because it's not smooth, so you're not getting as high of motion resolution. So that's a challenge, and I'm still trying to understand that. And it might be that I go to, because the camera can go all the way to 60p, so I have all those extra frames for when I'm trying to slow it down.
You're really going to slow it down that way.
So it's figured out, but and there's also, I'm kind of debating in my mind, it might be good to shoot everything in 60p, because the computers can pull out the 24p no problem.
Sure.
But that, it's just fun playing with a camera and having that, because it does, when you look at the two images on a screen afterwards, you really see like, okay, this looks like a Hollywood movie or like a HBO show, and this one kind of looks like a public television soap opera from England. So they have those different, just what you want to create.
Isn't it in the color correction? A lot of that. You can take one of those possibilities and make it in the other possibility by doing a slider in the color correction, no?
I think for me, my eyes are really sensitive to how an image is moving. And you know how
it's not just the color.
Yeah, no,
it's the way the object moves across the
yeah,
screen.
It has, for the 24p to the 30p to the 60p to the 60i, it really has to do with how the eye and the brain is registering, how much resolution of motion are you getting. The color and the richness is affected because you're dealing with what the sensor can deal with. But these cameras are built to really deliver impactful images, and you're actually going to get a richer image, yes, on a 24p, but it's more about how much motion are you going to get. And so when you cut out the when we take just 24p, our brains, from a cinema standpoint, we're used to looking at 24p. So when you look at a movie, it's 24p. When you look at like high-end television, it's shot in 24p. So your eyes are used to that resolution. So there's something, it could be totally trained. It's like an acquired taste that like our eyes just want to see 24p.
Yeah. Well, I think this the eyes and the brain and all that's all connected. And this is off the point, but I had a friend who was an accountant, and he would say, people would ask him, "What kind of accountant are you?" And he would say, "I'm a psychiatric accountant." I said, "What is that?" Well, he says, I give people a good psychological experience while I practice accounting with them.
That's amazing.
And it was very good, and everybody liked him for that.
Yeah.
And he was providing sort of another service.
Yeah.
Well, making movies, making video, it's also psychology, isn't it?
Yes.
And you're really talking about how people receive this information, how their brain interprets this information, what kind of emotional experience they have, and you can change that experience with any one of a number of variables.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how much control you have over their receipt of the information.
Yeah, and a lot of times I don't realize how much control I have over that.
It's true, you may not know, but there's something happening.
Yeah. The other thing, you bring up the accountant, that's the thing, because I do this as a freelancer. So there's a certain level that I have one of my jobs is to psychologically take care of my clients in the process. Because everyone's
same thing.
Yeah, everyone's very, making video it's a labor of passion,
Sure.
But it's also, there's a lot of insecurity that comes with it because there's a vast thing, and as you know, there's a lot of moving parts. Stuff can go wrong, and there's a big piece of it. Technology aside, it's about holding a space you know, keeping a level head, being able to respond to panic in an okay way. And there is that psychological.
People, egos working. They're
Yeah,
on camera. They haven't been
yeah,
on camera. They see it as a big threat.
yeah,
Their life is forfeit if they make a mistake.
yeah,
And so you have to give them comfort about that.
yeah. And it's you know, our society holds up video and moving media as like this pinnacle of expression to a certain degree. So when anybody's around it, it's kind of like this weird technological temple of like, you know, like what you've created here. It's a
Huge, big temple.
yeah. So
I remember just free association, but Charles Ferguson made this movie. What was it? About the crash of 2008.
Okay.
Inside Job.
I haven't seen it yet.
Brilliant documentary.
Okay.
Brilliant. And talk about the psychology. And he would stand behind the camera. You never saw his face. The whole movie is a full-length movie. And you only heard his voice, and it was in sort of a middle American accent, so there's nothing special about it. But he had a way of putting out the questions.
Yeah.
He had a way of drawing these people out, and he interviewed some very VIP people, and was one guy in the Treasury Department who was central in the debacle. And he got this guy to start talking, and a few minutes in, the guy said, can you turn that off? Because he realized he was going to look terrible to millions of people.
Yeah.
It's that same thing about being afraid of the camera. And so what the process you describe about giving them comfort and making them feel that they're not going to destroy their lives, it's all the more important the higher up you get, because the risk of destroying your life is that much greater the higher up you get.
Yeah, and you almost, when someone says like, "Can you turn that off?" He didn't walk out of the room.
No.
He actually was at an emotional place where he was safe enough. He wanted to share himself. He wanted to keep talking about it. He just knew that he needed to like not have that recording what he was saying.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, people are in, I mean, I can't imagine what any of those guys, with the conscience they must deal with, whether they knew what they were doing or they didn't.
You know, people are going in front of a camera regularly,
Yeah.
where their job is at stake, where other people can be hurt by what they say.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling, really. It's very difficult to do that, and only a few people really, usually in public office, can have the skill for it. Anyway, so you describe a very rich life.
It's fun.
Walking around with this expensive. How much is the camera?
I'm not telling you. No, the camera itself is 10 grand to buy the body, and then as you know, like memory cards and batteries and all that stuff, that adds in a whole other component, and then you have to get all the supplementary gear. So it turns into a package after a while.
And you said before that.
And it's still only like the lower of the line. I mean, there's cameras out there like, I don't know.
Same size.
Same size. Like, well, do you know about red cameras?
Yes.
I mean, these things are like out of control.
$20,000-$30,000.
Yeah, that's just for the body. Then you get into the lenses, and you're on a whole other thing.
Yeah. Are they worth it?
I haven't played with them. I don't know. There's people that just shoot red. So yeah, that's a real cinema look. That's
yeah, sure, and you can tell they're really invested in it.
Yeah.
Red is the center of everything for them.
Yeah.
But I think equipment is the center, really. I've learned that, and you speak that way, and you have to be comfortable with your equipment. You have to rely on it, because you're out there investing yourself and spending time and having people invest themselves. If the equipment fails, boy, that's a terrible day.
Yeah. But then you have to have, I came up with the phrase digital Taoism. You have to have that when those things happen, whether it's with your laptop, your iPhone, or your iPod, iPhone, or the most expensive camera, you could ruin the moment even more by going into the camp. There's a point of, if you stay flexible, you can always find something. There's a
I mean, in what you took.
In what you took, or you might be in the moment where you really need to record that moment, and you might have to whip out your smartphone and take over the video with that and just keep going. Someone get a great, it's an old phrase, but someone told it to me one time, and it's like, the best camera is the camera that you have in your hand. And
that's very good.
That's an important thing to remember, because we can have, yes, we want to make the best image possible, but sometimes the moment, and we're recording something and we want to deliver a piece of media, the audience will forgive quality if the moment and the story is there. So
that's true, and I think that's very wise and important. In my case, as a novice and an amateur, I've actually lost files one reason or another. There's a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There are a million ways you can lose a file.
Yeah.
Sometimes an important file.
Yeah.
Sometimes, there's no doubt about it. You can't
Yeah.
can't replace it.
Yeah.
There's no alternative. Does that happen to you?
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, philosophically, with that.
Well, the first thing that happens is you realize, okay, the file's gone. I can panic about it, but my goal now I have to go into psychiatric mode because I work for clients.
Okay.
So my client who paid me to have this footage, I lost that footage, or and there has to be a point of where like I have to get okay with it because now my job is to help my client be okay with it. And that's the process. And again, there is always, now I work on production, and I've been fortunate to work with some producers who have a lot of experience, and it's about creating fail-safes, so we always shoot with, 2 to 3 angles. So even if you
2 or 3 cameras.
Yeah, so you lose one of those angles for your editing, you still got, 2 more to go.
Yeah.
So you're okay.
You're okay.
But it's heartbreaking because that might have been a really sweet angle that you had.
Yeah.
One of my first jobs, we had something happen to a hard drive because we were using a bad hard drive, and we basically lost 3 months of shooting, just gone, wiped. And luckily I was in it, and it was a bad day, and there was a lot of like equipment being thrown around the room as a result, But those things happen, and you just have to, I also like to think, I'm a bit of a spiritualist, so I like to think that there's some cosmic thing taking place. Like if that footage is gone, well,
there's better stuff coming down.
There's
the
better stuff
pipeline.
coming, or I'm supposed to reshoot that, or let it be
It's
something.
a great way to look at it.
Yeah, let it just. That's what it comes to. It's like I don't know why, but the footage is gone. And
God willed the footage should be gone. I must be on a mission for better footage.
Exactly, and I try to do my best to train myself so that that's not my hand that did it, or if it was,
Yeah.
But
Well,
those things happen,
what do you do in storage? I mean, I take Video Maker magazine.
Okay.
I don't know if you look at that, but they had an article this month about drives.
Okay.
Okay, and there's a whole big, there's a whole big panoply. I mean, of all these drives and technologies and everything. With the whole point is not to lose it.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
So what do you do not to lose it?
Not to lose footage. The primary production I work on, we do a week-long shoot 3 times a year, and this is really grade A material. So our failsafe system is we actually, and this is one of my main jobs during the shoot, is I'm cloning the footage to 3 sets of drives. So by the end of the shoot, there's 3 copies of the footage.
During the shoot, you're doing this.
Yeah, so it's, because every day, so between each shoot, I'm offloading the cards onto 3 different locations. At night, those locations clone. So by the end of the shoot, the whole shoot exists in 3 entities.
In drives.
In drives.
So what do you use to pass it to the drive? You have the cards and the camera.
Right. The cards go into the computer, and that
You
goes
take
to
the
one
cards
drive.
out of the camera, put them in the computer.
Yeah.
Put them on the drive in the computer. Is that what?
Yeah. So I'll just lay it out. I don't want to get too technical for the audience because I don't know how much they care about this
I was
stuff.
thinking the same thought, but just bear with us for a minute here. We're learning.
So there's 3 cameras at the shoot. So we'll just put camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. I've got 3 laptops, bump for each camera. So I'm dragging the data off of each of the cameras onto a set of hard drives. So camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, each have the hard drives. At the end of the day, I hook all those hard drives together, and I make sure that all 3 cameras are on all 3 drives. And I'm doing that every day of the shoot. So that by the end of the shoot, I dragged all the footage off of all the cards, and they exist in duplicate on 3 different sets of drives. Now, there's 2 producers go back to their homes, and they each take a copy of the footage with them. So now the drives exist in 2 geographic locations that are separate from me. And I do mean geological because, heaven forbid, there's a natural disaster.
Sure.
They're all
Sure.
safe because we're treating the footage with that much gold.
Yes.
And then I take a copy home with me to edit. That way, if any one of our drives fail, or something were to happen, or the business deal goes bad and one guy takes off with the footage, it still exists in another thing. So
and unless it's a nuclear disaster, the chances are you'll
Right.
have a recovery of some kind.
now the next move, and where we really need to start going now, is you take a copy of those drives and you ship it to a company like Amazon, who then loads it into the cloud and then ships you back your drives. So now your footage exists in what's now called the cloud, and it's pretty safe there.
safe there.
I mean, you'd really have to.
But you can't do that remotely. You have to actually ship the drive to them.
Well, I could do it remotely, but the amount of
so
the
long.
bandwidth and the amount of, I mean, we're talking, a shoot like that is 2 to 3 terabytes of footage. So to try to upload that up through an FTP is going to
It'll take
take
forever.
months.
As
And
fast, the fastest possible product.
so a company like Amazon, they've got it set up so you ship them the drives and they hook it in by hardwire and they load it in there at a much faster rate.
You're not going to lose anything that way.
Right.
What is the value of RAID? Are you using RAID in anything?
The hard drives that I use are GTEx, and they're run as a RAID within the drive.
Within the drive?
So it's got several drives within the drive.
You mean
and
the
they're,
box?
Yeah.
Multiple drives in the
Yeah.
same
Excuse
box.
me.
Okay.
Within the unit. And then there's also God, what's the name of that company? We have another drive that we're starting to use that also is they're removable slots. It's about this tall, Rockstar, and those are all rated in there as well.
So which one do you like best, GTEC or Rockstar?
I'm starting to like Rockstar more. The one that we're using, I think it's called Rockstar. I should know that. I should have studied before I came here.
No. That's
But-
the idea, is not to study.
Right. But those just seem to be a little bit more reliable when it comes down to, because I do everything through eSATA right now.
Right,
And
which is faster.
much faster, but it's also very unstable. So I'll have drives dismount on their own without even being touched. And then when that happens, it messes up all the permissions and I have to rebuild the drive with some software. This is the real fun stuff.
That's
Talk
okay.
about
We
drives.
need to know about this. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of vagaries, and if
Yeah.
you're in the professional end of it, and you are, you can't afford to lose in it. I
Right.
think so.
Yeah.
So here we are with.
And you
this-
still do.
Oh
All
my
that
God.
and you still lose
all
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So
I'm sorry to hear that.
You can't. I mean, there's certain. It's like everything in life, right? You can only take it so far, and then there's always something's going to happen,
Sure.
and you can't.
Sure.
You can't cover all the
It's a
contingencies.
fallibility kind
Yeah.
of thing. And that'll keep you philosophically straight. I mean,
Yeah.
You have to. It's like the immortality of mankind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, here we are. Okay, so now we have I saw it yesterday. This fantastic backpack that weighs like 60 pounds. What's in the backpack? The camera, the EX3, just one, not two.
Right.
The EX3, and what else?
Well, I've got a good supply of batteries because I never want to be in a situation where I run out of power.
Yeah.
And then I've got a good supply of memory cards, and then that pack can also carry extra lenses for that camera, or it has enough room for either a smaller HD camcorder. I keep my still camera in there as well. It's got a slot for the laptop. It's got all lens cleaning stuff. I carry a package of ponchos in there in case I'm in wet conditions. I need to wrap up my camera real fast.
You don't want to get it wet.
Yeah, it's a great pack, and when you get into like the gear and video side, you get this amazing like appreciation of a good bag, because
How else are you going to carry it?
yeah, and you want all these little compartments to keep your stuff nicely organized, because the last thing you need to be worrying about is which pocket is my battery in right now.
Right. So you got to get used
And
to
it also
that.
carries my microphones, lavalier microphones.
So yeah, how many do you carry at a time? The lavaliers,
Actually, right now I'm just doing one,
this one.
and I could get to two, but to manage that kind of sound, that's where it gets to that point of where you really need to bring that
You need
other
a sound
person in.
man.
Yeah, because I can barely manage. I'm doing an external mic and a lav, and it's
Yeah. Well, on the sound, these cameras, I looked at your camera, the EX3, and it only has 2 XLR ports.
yeah,
So, if you want to go to 3 lavaliers, you
Yeah.
got to have a mixer, and
Right.
it's a real project.
yeah,
It really does require somebody else who carries a bag,
Yeah.
and a mixer, and batteries for the mixer,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. It works well, but it
Yeah.
costs money.
I think that's one of the challenges we have today in the whole video media stuff is that the technology is empowering us to a level where we think we can do it all ourselves, and we can to a certain degree, and as a result, the value on production is, we're more people able to do more, but then the common person doesn't appreciate what it takes to really do it
It's
well.
the craftsman thing.
Yeah.
If you
And
have
it
a
real-
little time,
Yeah,
you do a better job.
and it really does take a team of people to do something well.
Yeah.
I learned, over the past years that the whole theater art of like stage management and all that, the curtains and the sets and all that, was actually based off of the sailors. So a lot of the call signs when you're on a theater are all sailing call signs, because it used to be ship guys that would come ashore that would work in these theaters. And so there's a certain part of video which is graduated out of theater, or a film that's graduated out of theater, and it really is kind of like a being at sea kind of thing. And when you're working on a crew, you do get kind of a mentality of like, who's the captain, you follow directions, and you have to be able to move as a unit. And that's when I get in a production where I'm with a group of people and you're bonded and you're doing that, it's one of the greatest experiences.
What happens?
It's just, to be able to fall into sync with someone and recognize, okay, you're the master at this, I'm learning from you, you tell me what to do, and then you raise to the level of where they can trust you to take care of your own little area, and then you're all kind of working this, and then suddenly the moment starts happening. And that's your wind, right? And you're catching that storm or you're catching that wind and you're recording that moment. And that's kind of like everyone's kind of got that twinkle in their eye like, man, this is gold, this is what we're here for. Whether that's the theater or whether that's the interview that you're preparing, you all feel like you're a part of something. Yeah. And you're, really there. Where it's like,
well, I certainly know that. I know that experience. Sometimes you don't have a crew. You don't have it. You got to get out there and get the footage, and there's nobody to help you, one reason or another. Yeah. And you can do it, and probably as time goes by, next 5-10 years, just 5. We don't need to go to 10. God knows what 10 will be like. Yeah. But at 5, all this equipment, including your fancy EX3, is going to be even more, operatable by one person only. Right. And you'll have all kinds of technologies that'll let you do it by yourself. Yeah. But that'll be harder. In a funny way, that'll be harder. Right. Because you still have to get quality footage.
Right. And just as I'm sure, I'm not a big sailor. I'd like to be. But I'm sure sailing on a one-person boat is an amazing experience and being out in the ocean. But I'm sure taking a big rig out there and being with a team of people and really having that human experience of synchronicity and working together as a team. Sure. And knowing that you can rely on people and stuff like that. That's a human experience.
It's like
that's really
an orchestra.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Or a band. Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take your bag out.
Some is greater than the whole. The whole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Something greater than the whole parts.
Well, there's a gratification in that. And I think what I hear you saying is something that I believe myself. Yeah. And that is that sometimes you do things for the artistic experience of it, or to obtain content you could not otherwise obtain. Yeah. And the money's not important. Yeah. It's just. You're at a moment in history. You've got to have it. You've got to participate in it. You've got to have the group around you all synchronous like that. There's a psychic benefit that's huge in that. Yeah. So I'm envious, actually.
Well, you're putting it together here. It's nice.
Well, sometimes we're alone.
Yeah,
there's nobody behind the camera. There's nobody manning the sound.
I know, but that's amazing that you got that part out. But it does feel like you have. Just a little observation of yesterday. You've orchestrated a team of people working with you and putting together, and I don't know if the dream's been laid out, but there's definitely a dream that everyone's kind of leaning towards.
Trial and error, and finding people who are willing, who understand what you're talking about, and who like to work together, and everybody picks up the slack. Yeah. So now, in addition to this 60-pound bag with all this fabulous gear that you never turn your back on this bag ever for an instant moment in time. You have I
had a dream last night that I was. I had a dream that I got.
I call it a nightmare.
Yeah, someone, I was on the phone for some reason, and someone got the backpack from me, and I chased him, and it was like handed to this guy, handed to that guy, and it was gone in a minute, and it was like the emotional like. And then I woke up. I was like, "Oh, that relief."
Whatever you had for dinner, it didn't help.
Yeah.
Gee, that's a scary dream. If that happened, well, you'd be insured and
insured,
get money for it, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, and then as we're talking about this losing files and footage, it didn't. The gear was nothing. The gear's just material stuff. You can replace the gear in a minute, but the footage and the files that are within that backpack, if I don't have that offloaded, backed up, and somewhere else, then I'm always at risk.
It's a huge risk. Yeah. One thing about cameras and gear, lenses, all that stuff, the tolerances are so fine, and they're made so well. Yeah. Sony, for example, but also Canon and Panasonic and what have you. It just strikes me that if you had 3 identical cameras, could you tell the difference? They operate they're so identical. They're so well made. Yeah. There's not like you had a special characteristic in one that's not in the other. Yeah. When they come out of the box, they're all the same.
Yeah. I think as you get into using a camera and doing a lot of handheld work, you do develop your own particular settings of where you like the camera. And so you might have a little bit of an advantage there. And I don't want to sound like a kook or anything, but I do feel like, despite the fact that this microphone looks the same as one just like it, that if it's really yours and you use it a lot, you do develop sort of a resonance with the object. So I think that if I use, and right now I couldn't, but if I gave me a camera for another 6 months and then you put it with 3 other, I think there's a part of me that would, just, I would know little things about it, whether it was a nick here or I just kind of would know that's my camera.
You rely on it. There's a relationship there.
Yeah, I think there is. I do believe in relationship to physical objects.
You trust it, and it delivers to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if you've been through a situation where if you didn't have that resonance, you would have had the rug pulled out from under you somehow.
Yeah, that's why I always I love Star Wars so much, but those droids really do have personalities. And they respond differently to different things. And so I think that even though our equipment's not self-aware yet, there's still those components.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So now you also carry a tripod bag.
Yeah.
I didn't see the tripod, but I wonder what kind of tripod was it like, and how do you use it in your daily grind?
It's that's a fairly inexpensive tripod that I got just for traveling. It's a Manfrotto. I don't know the model number off the top of my head. It's got a liquid head or whatever, but it's fairly inexpensive. You really have to be careful with an inexpensive tripod as far as how your camera's moving, because I like to do pans and I like to do different stuff with it. But it's, it doesn't have the nice smooth glide. The more expensive you pay for, more money you put into a tripod, the more beautiful glides you're going to get out of it, the more stable glides you're going to get out of it. And it really, it looks like when you move the camera, it looks like an airplane coming in for a nice landing versus, Atari jet coming in for a landing from an old video game where it's got the jitters on it.
That's awful, actually.
Yeah, so you can develop, I believe you can get your skill set down and your own personal muscle tone to really know how to move the camera nicely on any tripod. Some are easier than others.
So sometimes you really have to hold it so the so the tripod doesn't take it away from you.
Yeah.
And I have some cheap tripods that happens.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's doing something and you didn't want it to do that, and it's down or to the side. It's got its own peculiarities. I agree with you. Yeah.
It's a piece of equipment. There's when I first started getting into videography professionally, I was in an environment where they had Tai Chi classes every day. And
okay. I'm relying on all these disciplines.
Yeah. So Tai Chi, I think, is something that I'd like to get more into, because I think Tai Chi and handheld camera work go hand in hand. To be able to balance your weight, have fluid motion, and really be able to.
It's true.
Yeah.
If you don't have if your feet are not firmly on the ground, if you're not balanced, you're going to make a mistake, and it's going to go to the side, and then that footage is messed up. You got to clip it out. Who knows what?
Yeah.
Do you ever try to fix that up in the editing? Where you grab a point and the editor will, hold that point, even though you were jerky in your camera work. Somehow it's smooth.
I was telling my dad, I'm not the best camera person right now. I was telling my dad this the other day. I was like, but I get away with a lot because I am the editor. So I get, if I were to hand my footage over to an editor, sometimes I might be embarrassed because of all the shucks and drives that exist in the footage. But if I am doing it myself, I know where those are and I can eliminate them. And sometimes I'm learning now that the edits can be a lot more interesting and fun if you actually include those moments. Don't include the whole fall or don't include the whole offset, but let the camera do a motion that's like the eye wasn't expecting, and build that into your edit so it's actually a punctuation mark and it's part of the visual grammar of what you're putting together.
Yeah.
So use all that stuff.
It's really important to have good camera work. Really is.
Yeah.
Professional, and then so the editor can mess it up if he wants, but it doesn't matter. He can go back, start again. So you got to start with the quality stuff. Now, what about hand holding? It's not the right term, but shoulder holding, whatever. Sometimes we do that in our we call it story walk.
Okay.
Story walk, and we walk with somebody and we mic them up and we walk behind them or around them.
Awesome.
And we just have a conversation like this, except we're walking, so you get the outside location, which makes it more interesting. And it comes out okay, even though the camera work is not perfect.
Yeah.
But what about you? You have a camera will go on your shoulder if you want. And the way you hold it, the holdability of that camera,
it's really nice.
Can give you a pretty smooth shot.
Yeah.
So do you do that? Do you walk around like that?
I do. I just shot an event this weekend where there was a lot of walking around and, you know, catching a lot of, it was, you know, kind of shot like in a reality kind of stand where I had the subject mic'd and they were just living their life and I was hovering around catching the different moments. That's what's interesting to me. That's fun stuff. And, you know, the first camera that I bought professionally and started shooting with and had a lot of experience with was the XL2 Canon camera. And that camera was actually very similar in shape and had similar holds on it for doing that kind of stuff. And you just learn different stuff. Like one of the shots I always loved to do was I'd actually rest the lens of the camera here and hold it like this. So I'm actually like holding a baby.
And you're looking down into the monitor.
Turn sideways, turn this. And this gives me a lot more stability. Now what I'd have to be careful of, if I hold it too close and I'm breathing with my belly's actually like, you gotta watch out for that. But
don't breathe.
or I gotta do more, work out more. But that's a good shot. But you learn all these different places to put, and then also a function of the handheld stuff. And this is my, that's the style that I've developed. There's people that use steady cams and all that kind of stuff. But I'm always aware of what are the stable pieces of furniture, walls, poles, trees. Because if I can get on one of those, just to give my body a rest, and it really still
just lean against it. You be your own tripod. Yeah.
Stabilizes the image as well.
So, and then, you stabilize the image, but it's that sense of freedom that the camera is moving like a person.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It has a little movement, a little vibration.
Well, if you watch like a lot of the contemporary TV shows now, especially the ones that are like, the crime shows or stuff like that, that camera is almost handheld all the time, and it's jiggling and it's moving, and it's part of their psychological style that they're trying to deliver.
Right.
So, and that happens in a lot of movies too. I mean, especially a lot of these action movies now. I mean, it's shot so you're supposed to be like this voyeur who's like ducking from the bullets just as well.
Voyeurism is what it is. You're in the room.
Yeah, it's adding a personality to the visuals.
And you have the fear psychology. Because you think the bullets might hit you.
Right. And I've talked to some people, it's just like, I can't watch those movies because I just get stressed out. You know, it literally like just the muscle response from their eyes to their brain. Their eyes are like, whoa.
There it is, the psychology again.
Yeah.
Now, what about the framing? I know we're jumping all over, but I'm so
That's
curious
fine.
about what you do.
Yeah.
The framing. When you're framing the work, you want to have the whole face in there. Give the editor the chance of cropping it down.
Depends on your final format.
Do you ever come in close? 60 minutes. My God, 60 minutes is this close.
Yeah.
They chop everything off. I don't know where they do that, though.
We have I work with a producer and director who really likes that shot. To me, that drives me nuts. Because I at least want to see the chin. And I've got this weird thing where like I need a certain percentage of the forehead in the shot. But, some people will come down right in there. Now, unless I've done really interesting stuff where it's just parts of the face. So you don't get to see the whole face. You get either the mouth or you get the eyes for a second. And it really, from a psychological standpoint, it really puts you like you're really analyzing the person that you're watching.
Yeah. Seeing all the muscles.
Yeah.
Seeing the eyes move.
It can be really fascinating.
See a lot.
Yeah. And especially for this kind of format, which I do a lot too, which is talking heads. It's fun to give the viewer, or at least the editor, a chance to work with something, a little bit different.
Right. Otherwise, it's just talking heads, and that's fall asleep on that.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll fall asleep on this conversation, though.
Well, it depends on how prone they are.
Give a rip about anything. So now, do you think this would happen at the editing level? I mean, I can take a whole standing up shot, and then come in close.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get the same resolution.
Correct.
But I could do that.
Right.
So what are the parameters for you for your?
Well, it really does depend on what your final output is, right?
Yeah.
So we used to live in a world where our final output was, a little web screen. So, and this is when we were shooting an SD still. So we had all this room to crop down at because everything was built for web. Mm-hmm. We're still on that same road, but now our web screens are actually getting bigger and deeper in resolution.
Yeah.
Now our frame resolutions on our cameras are larger too, so we still have that crop availability. But then you have to look at the lifetime of your work, right? And this is where I'm at now. Is it eventually I'm building stuff that I want it to have a long lifetime. So if I'm creating content for the web, I have to understand that maybe someday it'll be a DVD. And maybe someday it'll be, broadcast on TV.
Yeah, so you have to maintain a professional level of quality.
So if I start playing with all this cropping to make an interesting image and stuff like that, when I go to DVD, I'm going to have to undo all that. So why would I do that? Yeah. So if if I can have a camera that can shoot the image I want. Now, you can play with this creativity. It just depends on how big of a pond you want to swim in with the length of and the lifetime of your content. So my suggestion, or where I'd like to be now, is shoot it how you want it edited, and don't ask your editor to do too much as far as the cropping. Let him focus on cutting a nice story, the timing, the timing, color, stuff like that, and really get it in where you want it. Because you can also, I think, when you get into larger productions, you want to have a sense of artistic ownership of whatever you're doing. So if you lock in a really nice looking image, then you don't have to. The editor doesn't get to do that work. You've kind of said, this is my image. Yeah. You've got no room to go.
I agree absolutely. It's, in lawyering, the notion is try to win at the trial level, not the appeal.
Okay, right, exactly. Yeah. Or I think the thing don't even go to trial, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
If you can pull that off.
Yeah, right. That's the best texture of all.
Yeah. So if you can that's where if you can deliver a set of footage that's just plain and simple and whatever. I'm at a level where we don't work with a lot of scripts. I can't wait to the day where I work with scripts. And
what you want to. You're looking forward to that.
Yeah, because there's the more I've learned this from people who've been in the creative fields longer than I have, that more confining the box, the greater opportunity for creativity. So if I'm given a bunch of footage, then my energy is going into figuring out how to make that footage tell a story.
Sure.
Whereas if I'm given a script and that set of footage, then I know I've already given it parameters, and now where my creative mind can go to whole other places of how I can work and make that interesting.
Yes.
As to have
that's the psychology thing.
Yeah.
And the frame by frame by frame.
Right.
And turning. Oh yeah, I can. So it's actually it's a different creative experience.
Yeah.
To find the story. In a long statement of film,
right,
or to find the story in a scripted where
the
exact words have already been determined,
right,
and now we just have to put the light on their face,
right. And even then, when you get to a serious production level, all those little things have all been, there's a lighting guy who's doing the lighting, there's a director who's working with the actors, and there's a cinematographer who's directing the lighting. It gets really in depth. So by the time it gets to the editor, he or she has a very refined role in really bringing out the subtle flavors of what's there.
So it's the same thing as what you were talking about before. It's the psychological thing, and the power of the psychology of the movie is that much greater, right?
Yeah.
If you have the scripted work.
Yeah.
So some of it has already been determined. So, but why is it later on the continuum? Why don't you do that right now today? What's holding you back?
Good question. I think it's, there's a process of wanting to chart my own course and find that, and not wanting to go into a production center like LA or, in those kind of environments, because I just didn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And I do really enjoy the documentary experience and creating content from that. I deal with some very interesting alternative content that really keeps me excited.
Tell me about it.
Well, a lot of that's like what I couldn't figure out how to explain it to people when I go to these networking meetings. So I just say I work in alternative spirituality. So that's the market that's involved.
That's not good enough, actually.
Well, yeah, I know.
What do you mean?
Well, that's then at least with that word, then they go, well, what are you talking about? Right. So that gets me into now I've got you. So then I can say, yoga, meditation, what I consider what people call the presence movement or the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah.
That involves Tai Chi, and that can be a very commercial, thing where you're selling yoga instructional DVDs and selling retreat workshops, stuff like that. And that can be the level up beyond that, which is, starting to really get into what do we need to go through as a society to transform to a place of where we're sustainable, both environmentally, socially, culturally, spiritually. What are we here to do as a species? And it gets into that kind of stuff. So
it's really important.
It's fun.
Really important.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
It's more than art. It's something beyond. It's philosophy. It's right down there at the key.
Yeah, and then I got involved from an art aspect. So there's, I'm sure as the work you do, it becomes a responsibility, the kind of content that you're dealing with. But then you still have this artistic side that you're figuring out. So now I'm involved here, and I want to get into those productions that really allow creativity to flourish. But we're at a time where this stuff could not have had a place on television in previous ages. And now with the web and where technology is at, there's actually both an emerging market and an emerging audience for that kind of content.
Yes.
So
Wow, you're really at the cutting edge on that. So you don't want to go to L.A.
no,
You want to stay in New York, in the Bronx, if you will. You have your well, I guess in places other than L.A.
Yeah.
Like it's not
I
limited to the
love
Bronx.
I love the Bronx, and it's I don't know how I ended up there, but it's a stumbling. I
Where
stumbled.
are you in the Bronx?
I'm in this little neighborhood called Arthur Avenue, which is an old Italian first generation immigrant neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's it's remarkable. It's like a little, it's still trying to hold on. They're still trying to, the other parts of the Bronx are coming in, and the Italians tend to move out, but it still has that old New York feel that, it's almost wiped out.
Is that like Williamsburg? I mean, is there a parallel?
Williamsburg is the exact opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long was the last time you were in New York or been around there, but
A couple of years ago.
Williamsburg now is heavily gentrified.
Yes.
A lot of new amazing businesses, and it's really cool, but a lot of it's made up of young professionals. Many of their rent is paid for by their parents who aren't even in New York. So it's kind of like this, what's that island in Pinocchio?
Oh, I don't know.
There's an island where all like little kids go,
Okay.
like Lost Island. I forget what it's called, but
Yeah.
it's like that to a certain degree, where the sense of reality has not really hit in there. And what's really nice about the Bronx is that the sense of reality is thick. I mean, you can't escape reality.
Everybody's working for a living. They got real challenges.
Yeah, or they not working for a living because there is no work for them,
Yeah.
and their demographic.
Yeah.
But the sense of community is really strong, and really old school, and really it's amazing.
Oh, that sounds great.
So anyway, not to get too. I love
Okay,
the
I
Bronx.
needed to know. That's
I love those rich experiences. I love
Yeah.
San Francisco. I love rich culture.
Yeah.
And that might be in L.A., but I was also raised partly in Northern California, and we're also in the north of California. We're brainwashed to look very skeptically at Southern California.
Well, I was raised in New York, and we had the same brainwash.
Yeah.
If you want to know.
Yeah, and then within the movie industry, it's that worst of the worst, furthest away from authenticity. And I don't know, I haven't been in the movie industry, but that was the stereotype that I have been programmed with. So I'd rather go another route.
Yeah. So I mean, with that said, seems like documentary would be your most likely kind of product. Documentary would let you tell a true story,
Right.
not scripted, and it would let you do the philosophical thing you're talking about.
Right.
So why do you have any interest in script? Script is probably fiction. Somebody's making it up.
Right, but sometimes fiction is more capable of telling truth than nonfiction.
Gosh, touche.
I grew up as a Star Wars kid, right? So Star Wars is why I'm in video, why I'm in movies. And what's amazing about Star Wars was, my father and my uncles talked about Star Wars in the same conversation as God since I was a little kid. So Star Wars was always a part of the philosophical thing. And it's based off of Joseph Campbell. So it's a really rich, overarching look, and it was a portal into all this other stuff for me. So I want to tell stories like that. I want to be able to reach out and grab a 5-year-old by the heart and offer him something that his fathers and his uncles can tune into and go, yeah, there's great movies like that out there.
So can you mix the two? Can you take the documentary
Oh, yeah.
and put the script inside the same movie as the documentary? Do you compromise something or lose something if you do that?
No, I think, this is one of the wonderful things about video is it's such an expansive medium that you can shoot a documentary and then start adding scripted pieces to it, and no one says you can't do that. And then the audience is going, was this real, or was this,
Which
was
is
it
what you want.
story?
You want the audience to ask that question.
And but you
Challenge
want to. I
them.
mean, the ultimate goal is just to blow people's minds, right?
Yeah.
And from every age level,
Raise
and
awareness.
open their imaginations and open their ideas of what's possible, and the level of which they question themselves, question their reality, how they hold themselves accountable, and all the good stuff.
Yeah. So I just going back to an earlier point in our conversation. So I had this image of you and a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how do you come into those groups? How do you assemble those groups? How do they come together in the Bronx experience, if you will? How do you make the team that you really like to have around you?
It really is a family thing. I mean, that's what's kind of nice about it. Now and there's a big piece of serendipity, you know. And now if I went to LA, it'd be a different thing. In LA, it's really like
money.
well, in LA, I've done some shoots in LA, and you really do see like it's like construction crews, you know.
Mm.
This guy shows up on time. He knows his stuff. He does his stuff. He follows direction. I'm gonna call him next time, and those kind of teams start to build, and then those kind of crew leaders are thought of as the same way by the next level up on the feudal spectrum, who says this guy has a good team. They show up on time. They follow directions. They do things well. They're well orchestrated.
This is a loose association, but it's a team. Yeah.
And it kind of, you build these networks that can be called upon for different things.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to end up at one place where I met one producer who was my boss for a while, and we got along really well, worked really well. And then as he moves up into another production level, he takes me with him, and we have a level of friendship where I can say, I'd really like to get into this aspect of production or learn this piece. And he'll carve out a space for me and say, okay, you're doing that this time.
Ooh,
so
I
that's,
really like
that's
so you make your own
right.
career that way.
And it really is, I know that you guys talk a lot about, Asian culture, politics, and history. And it really is a bit of a shogunate to a certain degree. I mean, and I've found, and there's like, you swear loyalty to a lord to a certain degree, and wherever he moves, you kind of learn. And then there's Ronin out there, but
That's the way it works, though. It's
yeah,
the reality, as
yeah.
you say.
I think there's a certain level that's a reality to all reality. I mean, society really is still organized like that.
Yeah.
Whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah,
so
sure,
it's fun.
sure. No matter how much legal trappings you put around it, you still have to have trust for the other guy.
Right.
And a team will come
Right.
together. A good team will come together. So now you have these teams. In your role, I mean, are you acting as a member of the team or the leader of the team?
And my role now, I'm kind of, unfortunately, I'm just someone people like to have work with them. So there's several different aspects of my life where they'll call on me and have me there. And I'm not really a part of any team at this point. I'm kind of like so-and-so's good friend that is going to do this. And as an editor, I get to work, mainly by myself. And part of getting into the camera and relearning things is wanting to get back into production to have that team experience. Mm-hmm. But the people I work morally are on the director and producer level, and I come in after that team experience has kind of occurred. And sometimes they have me on the set as an editor to kind of say, you need this, you need this, you need that. Don't forget about this
the
angle.
Editor's eye.
Yeah, well, I really, this is not making sense. You need to back this up with something else.
Oh, that's very valuable.
Yeah, but then to that, I'm kind of like this attaché that's there with the team.
But it sounds like a producer, yourself, or a producer director yourself.
I think that's the long term. That's where I'd like to end up.
Somebody's going to come to you one day, and they're going to say, Stefan, we want you. We want you to be the producer director. This is the film we want to make. Take it.
Yeah.
And then you go hire everybody, or
bring,
assemble your team. I mean, has that happened? Is it going to happen? Do you want it? Have you cast your bread in the water for that?
I think the mode that I'm going through right now, and I've maybe been being a little bit too methodical, because I realize I talk to people who are like, say, a sound engineer, because I love meeting people and their technical skills. And so some guy's been a sound engineer for years. I say, so tell me about producers. What are they like? And I said, is that something I could do? He says, Stefan, most producers are idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. They got in the position by some, fluke of relationship, and they haven't taken the time to learn what the different trades are. And my idea of eventually getting to a place of producing is really having an idea of what everyone does, being able to speak their language, and being able to have compassion and respect and honor for the work that they do.
Yeah.
So we can bring it together nicely.
Yeah.
One of the things that's happening now is because where media is, it's no longer just about making a movie. Now, if you're doing a project, it's like you're going to need a website, you're going to need a Facebook app, you're going to need an iPhone app, you're going to need an Android app, you're going to need someone who can do the video stuff, and you're going to need someone who can promote the video stuff online. So now the teams that I'm trying to build are on those levels.
It's a broader team.
Where you can take, they're calling it transmedia, where I can tell a story across the different venues that are available to us now. And then, the video piece, we'll figure that out. But that really becomes, do we have this back-end distribution thing figured out where we can really just blow people's minds, no matter what the video is?
A lot of things come together in the producer. I mean,
Yeah.
and more now. It's more demanding now.
Yeah.
So you got all those distribution elements, And then you've got to have a good team. But I think when you get to be a producer, I think you will be, of course. You're going to know all the editing tricks and the way of looking at it. You're going to know the camera operator tricks. But you know what?
I won't know all the editing tricks, but I'll be able to talk intelligently about the potential.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
But the other thing I've noticed, in the editors that I've met here, and I really wonder, what the difference would be between here and there. But it seems to me that they really work to learn the documentary, to learn the facts, to learn the landscape, to know everything about what's going on out there, so they don't have a footfall. Because if you go down a path in a documentary that's not true,
Right.
take a position. There's always a message there, right?
Right.
If you make the wrong message, you're not. It's not a good documentary. You're off the wall. You're off the wall.
Right.
And so
That's a very good point. And what my response to that is the difference between having a discovery attitude in what you're trying to portray and having an agenda in what you're trying to portray. If you're making if you're constantly sifting the soil with the story that you're telling and trying to see what's down there, you're never wrong. You're just investigating. And so if the documentary has that attitude to it, I feel like that's something that's true. And you can't go down the wrong path. But if you get to the thing of like, okay, we're trying to prove this, then you can be wrong.
that's true. But there's pressure to
Yeah.
try to prove this and prove that. Somebody's funding this thing,
Right.
and then somebody may want to make a point, or
Yeah.
may want to encourage you to make a point, and that puts pressure on you. And I agree that the discovery thing is the most interesting of all, because then the
Right.
film is a dynamic, living, breathing thing.
Right.
You learn this, well, then you're going to have to inquire into that,
Right.
and then that, and you don't
Right.
know where you're going to end up.
Right.
That's really fun.
Yeah. Looking at film, and I mean, you said I always had a hard problem with Michael Moore, with his documentaries.
I was thinking of him a moment ago. Just when I said that, I was
Yeah.
thinking of Michael Moore.
Because he really does have an agenda, and whether you agree with his agenda or not, it's not the point. There was a time when I was like, I agree with his general ideology, but I disagree with the fact that he's basically just proving points to the choir that always believes him. He's not encouraging reflective thought process or to really look at other angles, which is, if we're going to get somewhere as a society and really start stumbling upon truths, we have to stop preaching down ideological lines, because all that's doing is creating groups of people that are programmed to believe and think a certain way instead of programmed to really investigate and look for the truths that are waiting for us. So we're not getting there.
Stefan, it's been wonderful. We could go on all day. No kidding.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
so impressed with what
Good to
you're
meet
doing.
you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.